The glance that froze the room. The soft glow of golden evening light wrapped around the Hollywood charity gala like a gentle promise. Cameras flashed, laughter echoed through crystal walls, and a string quartet's melody floated between chandeliers. The night was supposed to be another polished event, full of polite smiles and speeches about helping children. But 5 minutes after Keanu Reeves entered the hall, something subtle yet powerful stirred in the air. Sandra Bullock stood near the edge of the red carpet, her black satin gown catching every glimmer of light. She had been laughing with an old friend when she caught a glimpse of Armas stepping forward, her emerald dress shimmering like a quiet challenge. In that heartbeat, Sandra's eyes flickered, not with anger but with something fragile, human, and deeply relatable. A small, jealous glance. Keanu didn't see it at first. He was greeting staff members, bowing slightly to a young volunteer who nervously spilled water on his jacket. He smiled, patted the volunteer's shoulder, and whispered, "It's just water. Don't worry." The small act of kindness drew a murmur of respect from nearby guests. Yet Sandra's glance lingered. Not a glare, not a storm, just the brief kind of look anyone might have when an old, unspoken feeling stirs unexpectedly. The room seemed to notice. A photographer froze mid-shot, unsure if he had just captured something more than glamour. Anna reached Keanu, offering a soft hug and a joke that made him laugh in that quiet, genuine way the world adored. Whispers traveled like quicksilver among the crowd. Phones tilted ever so slightly. And in that moment, the night began to feel less like a gala and more like a stage where invisible emotions would play out. Sandra felt her heart pinch, then immediately felt ashamed. She had always admired Anna's talent and grace. She reminded herself that jealousy is only a shadow that sometimes follows love or respect. Still, the shadow was there and she couldn't shake it. She stepped aside, pretending to adjust her bracelet. Her mind wandered to the days when she and Keanu had shared quiet lunches, lifting each other through difficult times. She remembered his gentle words after her mother's passing, words that had stitched her broken heart. Anna, unaware of the silent storm, began telling Keanu about a young filmmaker she had met earlier that day, a nervous intern who dreamed of making a movie about resilience. Keanu's eyes softened. He scanned the room until he spotted the boy in a wrinkled suit, standing alone by the buffet table. "Let's go meet him," Keanu said. Anna nodded eagerly. They walked toward the boy and something unexpected happened. Sandra, still lost in her feelings, watched the two approach the intern. Instead of bitterness, she suddenly felt a tug of responsibility. She remembered the nights when kindness from strangers had kept her standing. She couldn't let jealousy drown out her values. With a deep breath, she followed. The intern looked up as 3 of Hollywood's most beloved stars stood before him. His hands trembled. I didn't think anyone would notice me," he whispered. Keanu crouched slightly so his eyes met the boy's level. "We notice," he said simply. Anna smiled and offered the boy her own drink. Sandra placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder and asked, "What's your story?" The boy spoke of a small town, a broken camera, and a dream that seemed impossible. As he spoke, the whispers in the hall faded. For a moment, there was no jealousy, no competition, no flashing cameras, just 4 people sharing a fragile human connection. Sandra's earlier glance seemed to dissolve in the warmth of that circle. Yet outside the hall, social media was already stirring. One photographer had captured the fleeting look. Within minutes, the photo was online. Sandra's jealous glance, Anna's approach, Keanu's smile. The caption read, "Was this Hollywood's most surprising moment?" Notifications exploded. Hashtags began to trend. But inside the gala, none of them yet knew how the world would twist that single second. As the evening unfolded, small acts of kindness kept building tension. Keanu quietly helped an elderly waiter carry a heavy tray. Anna excused herself from a celebrity conversation to comfort a crying volunteer who had received bad news about her family. Sandra, still thoughtful, noticed a stagehand struggling to fix a fallen backdrop and knelt down in her gown to help. Each moment carried a heartbeat of respect, humility, and resilience. But a storm was quietly gathering outside the walls of the gala. A gossip blogger was typing furiously, turning a single human glance into a brewing scandal, and unknown to them all, a bigger twist waited. A charity donor's check had mysteriously disappeared from the event's safe box, and security would soon start whispering about suspects. For now, the trio stood together near the stage, unaware of the wave forming beyond the walls. Sandra's heart felt lighter as she listened to the intern's story, but deep inside, she sensed that the night was far from over. The music faded as the auctioneer stepped onto the stage, his polished shoes glinting under the lights. The gala had reached the part everyone waited for, the charity pledges. Guests straightened their backs. Reporters held cameras high, and whispers filled the air like a restless breeze. Sandra stood with a small smile, though her mind still carried the echo of that earlier glance. She could feel the weight of her own vulnerability, and it made her quietly alert. Keanu leaned toward her, his voice low. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded quickly, but inside, she wondered if the world outside had already noticed what she wished to keep private. Anna clapped her hands lightly when a young cancer survivor walked on stage to thank the donors. Her applause was genuine, the kind that made people near her feel safe. She glanced at Keanu, then at Sandra, and in that moment, she sensed a thin thread of tension she could not name. But instead of stepping back, Anna made a decision. She would show warmth, not distance. She turned to Sandra and whispered, "You were amazing in your last film. The scene with the mother and the letter?" "I cried." Sandra blinked, caught off guard. She smiled, a real smile this time, and for a moment, the shadow between them softened. In the far corner, the nervous intern, now holding a plate of untouched dessert, watched the auctioneer raise a painting donated by a famous artist. The bidding war began. Numbers climbed. The intern's eyes widened as he overheard amounts larger than anything he had imagined. But then, in the background near the service doors, two security guards whispered urgently. One of them pointed toward the charity's office. The other shook his head, his hand trembling slightly. The missing check had been discovered. Keanu noticed the shift before anyone else. He was used to reading rooms, sensing quiet changes. He excused himself gently, walking toward the service hall. Sandra watched him go, her heartbeat picking up without knowing why. Anna stepped closer to the intern, offering a few encouraging words about chasing dreams. And then the auctioneer paused, the crowd gasped. Someone had just bid double the highest amount for the painting. A masked online bidder had stunned the room. Applause erupted. No one realized the real drama was quietly unfolding behind the stage. Keanu found the two security guards near the small office. "What's wrong?" he asked softly. One guard hesitated, unsure if he should reveal anything. But something in Keanu's calm eyes made him speak. "Sir, a large donation check is gone. It was locked in the safe an hour ago." Keanu's mind raced, but he kept his voice steady. "Let's not accuse anyone yet. People's lives can be ruined by a quick assumption. We'll figure this out." He suggested they discreetly check the footage and ask staff calmly. Back in the hall, Sandra felt unease ripple through her chest. She stepped toward Anna and the intern. "Stay here," she said quietly, though she didn't know why she felt protective. A moment later, a catering assistant bumped into a famous director, spilling champagne on his expensive suit. Gasps filled the room. Instead of anger, the director laughed softly, helped the assistant pick up the tray, and said, "We all spill sometimes." The room relaxed again, but Sandra felt the fragile balance of the night. Meanwhile, outside the gala, social media was in chaos. The photograph of Sandra's glance had reached millions of screens. Hashtags like "Chiu jealous glance" and "Ew Sandra's reaction" were trending. Comments flooded in, some cruel, some sympathetic. A gossip blogger claimed to have sources saying Sandra and Anna had been rivals for years. None of it was true, but the narrative was already spiraling. Anna's phone buzzed with messages. She read a headline on the screen and frowned. "Oh no," she whispered. She glanced at Sandra, unsure whether to show her. But when Sandra caught her expression, she understood. She didn't need to read the headline to know the world was spinning a story they hadn't written. "Let them talk," Sandra said quietly. "What matters is what we do here, not what they say out there." Her words were calm, but her eyes held sadness. Keanu returned to the hall with a composed face, though he knew things were complicated. He slipped beside Sandra and Anna, speaking so only they could hear. "A check is missing." "They're worried." Sandra's breath caught. Anna glanced at the intern, who looked down, panicked. I swear I didn't, the boy began, but Keanu stopped him with a gentle wave. No one's accusing you, Keanu said softly. We'll find the truth. The auctioneer's voice rose again, announcing the final item, a small silver bracelet once owned by a famous humanitarian. As bidding began, Sandra's mind wasn't on the jewelry. She was remembering a night years ago when she had accidentally been blamed for a misplaced prop on set. The humiliation had been sharp, but one actor, Keanu, had defended her quietly. He had said, "We don't know the whole story. Let's not break someone for a mistake that might not even be theirs." Now, she felt the echo of those words. Anna sensed the tension. To break it, she suggested something bold. What if we stay after the gala and help them check? We can show people that kindness matters more than gossip. Keanu agreed instantly. Sandra hesitated, then nodded. The intern looked at them with wide eyes, as if he had just been handed a lifeline. As the gala ended, applause filled the hall for the donations raised. Outside, photographers shouted questions about the viral glance, but Sandra kept her head high. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that dignity is often the quietest response to noise. Keanu placed a protective hand on her back, guiding her through the flashing lights. Anna walked beside them, ignoring the reporters' baiting questions. The three of them moved like a silent promise that respect would win over rumors. When the doors closed behind them and the hall grew quiet, the security guards led them to the office. The safe stood open, its contents neatly stacked, except for the missing check. Tension hummed in the air like a distant storm. The intern shuffled nervously, his voice barely a whisper. Maybe someone needed it. Maybe they were desperate. Keanu looked at him with gentle eyes. Even desperate hearts need understanding. But let's find the truth first. Anna spotted something on the carpet, a torn corner of a white envelope. She bent down, picked it up, and showed it to the guards. "This might be from the check," she said softly. The guard nodded grimly. Sandra folded her arms, thinking. "This doesn't feel like theft for greed," she murmured. "This feels personal." Keanu's gaze drifted toward a framed photo on the office wall, a picture of the charity's founder, an elderly woman with kind eyes. Beneath it was a plaque that read, "Kindness is the only legacy worth leaving." Something about the words struck him deeply. The night was no longer a glamorous gala. It had become a fragile web of secrets, kindness, and choices that would test their hearts. Outside, the city glittered under a velvet sky, unaware that three of its brightest stars and one unknown intern were about to uncover a story bigger than jealousy and louder than gossip. The office lights flickered faintly, casting long shadows on the carpet as the group stood around the open safe. The intern's hands shook slightly, and Anna placed a gentle hand on his shoulder to steady him. "Breathe," she whispered. Her voice was calm, like a steady river cutting through a noisy storm. Sandra crossed her arms and paced slowly, her heels clicking against the polished floor, a sound that seemed louder than it should have been in the silence. Keanu stood still, his eyes scanning the room as if the walls themselves might whisper the truth. A sudden knock at the door made everyone jump. A young woman entered, wearing a volunteer badge and holding a clipboard. Her eyes were wide with worry. I saw someone near the office earlier," she said. "It was fast, like they didn't want to be seen." Sandra stepped closer. "Who?" she asked gently. The volunteer hesitated. "I didn't get a good look. Just a dark jacket and a cap pulled low." The room grew heavier. Keanu looked at the guards. "We need to check the security footage now," he said. But one guard sighed. "There's a problem. The cameras in this hallway glitched tonight. The feed froze for 20 minutes right before the auction." Anna frowned. "That feels too convenient." Sandra nodded slowly. "Or too desperate," she murmured. They searched the office for more clues. Anna opened a drawer and found a crumpled flyer about a struggling local shelter that the charity had once supported. On the back, a handwritten note read, "I'll fix this. Please forgive me." She held it up. "Someone didn't do this for money," she said softly. "This feels like someone trying to save something important." Keanu leaned against the desk, remembering a night years ago when he had been broke and a stranger quietly paid his rent. He understood what it meant to act out of desperation mixed with hope. "Let's not call this person a thief yet," he said. "Sometimes good people make bad choices when they feel trapped." Outside, reporters huddled under umbrellas as rain began to fall, their voices crackling through the night air. The world was already spinning stories of jealousy and scandal. Inside, Sandra glanced at her phone and saw another headline. "Viral glance overshadows Gala's purpose." Her chest tightened. She thought of the children the charity was meant to help, and anger sparked, not at Anna, not even at the unknown person who had taken the check, but at the way kindness was so easily lost under gossip. Anna broke the silence. "What if we go to the shelter mentioned in this flyer? Maybe someone there knows something." The intern looked nervous but hopeful. "I can drive us," he said quietly. Keanu smiled faintly. "You're part of this now," he told the boy. "You have courage just by standing here." As they left the hall, the rain grew heavier. Water pooled on the pavement, and the city's neon lights reflected on the slick streets like liquid jewels. Their cars' headlights cut through the downpour as they drove through quieter neighborhoods. Sandra stared out the window, her mind swirling with memories of times she had been misunderstood. She thought of a moment on a film set years ago when someone spread a rumor that nearly cost her a role. The hurt of that moment made her empathize with whoever had taken the check. When they arrived at the shelter, the building looked tired but warm, its windows glowing softly against the storm. Inside, children's drawings decorated the walls, rainbows, smiling suns, and simple words like hope and home. A thin woman with kind eyes greeted them, surprised to see such famous faces at her door. Keanu stepped forward first. "We're not here for publicity," he said gently. "Something happened tonight. We think maybe someone connected to your shelter was desperate enough to take a check from the Gala." The woman's eyes widened. She glanced toward a small office, then back at them. "We've been on the edge of closing," she admitted. "A few days ago, one of our volunteers said he couldn't bear to watch these kids lose their beds." Her voice trembled. "He left tonight saying he would find a way to save us." Anna's heart ached. She asked quietly, "What's his name?" The woman hesitated. "Mason," she said. "He's young. He lost his parents last year. He's been living here while working nights. He's good, just broken in places." Sandra closed her eyes briefly. "Broken doesn't mean bad," she whispered. Keanu nodded. "We're not here to ruin him," he said. "We're here to help him." The intern stepped forward. "Maybe he's at the old pier," he said suddenly. The woman looked surprised. "Why there?" The boy explained. "Mason always said the pier was where he went when he needed to think. He once told me the sound of the waves made him believe in second chances." They drove through the rain again, their tires hissing on the wet asphalt. The pier appeared through the fog like a ghost of the city's past, its wooden planks glistening with rainwater. A lone figure stood at the end, shoulders hunched against the storm. "Mason." Keanu approached quietly, careful not to startle him. "Mason," he called gently. The young man turned, his face pale and wet from the rain. He clutched the envelope tightly in his hand. "I didn't mean to steal," he said, his voice cracking. I couldn't watch them lose everything." Sandra stepped beside Keanu, her gown heavy with rain, her hair sticking to her cheeks. "Mason," she said softly, "you're not alone." "But taking this isn't the answer." Anna moved closer too, her voice steady but kind. "We'll help you fix this, but you have to trust us." Mason's eyes filled with tears. "They'll hate me," he whispered. Keanu shook his head. "People make mistakes," he said. "What matters is what you do next." The wind howled around them, carrying away the city's distant sounds. Mason's fingers trembled as he extended the envelope. Sandra reached out and took it gently, her hands steady despite the cold. "You cared enough to try," she said. "Now let us care enough to help you." Anna removed her shawl and wrapped it around Mason's shoulders. The intern stood quietly, absorbing every detail, knowing this moment would shape him forever. As they walked back toward the car, lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating their small group against the vast storm. None of them spoke, but a fragile understanding bound them. They had come for a check, but they had found a deeper truth, that even broken choices often hide a desperate kind of love. Back at the shelter, they explained everything to the woman in charge. Instead of anger, she wept quietly, hugging Mason. Keanu placed the envelope on her desk. "The money belongs here," he said. "But let's also find ways to support you beyond tonight." Sandra nodded. "We can do more than give a check. We can give these kids a future." Anna looked around the shelter at the peeling paint and the old furniture. "Let's fix this place," she said. "Let's show the world the story behind the headlines." But outside, the headlines had already grown louder. The gossip blogger now claimed the stolen check was part of a scandal involving the 3 stars. Rumors twisted into cruel stories. Even as the truth began to heal one small corner of the world, lies were spreading to millions. And somewhere in the city, a rival journalist prepared to reveal a shocking detail that would make tomorrow even harder. The morning sun rose over Los Angeles like a quiet promise. But the city's gossip machines were already roaring to life. Phones buzzed with fresh headlines, and television anchors wore polished smiles as they hinted at a deeper scandal brewing behind the Gala's glittering facade. Sandra Bullock's name flashed across screens beside words like jealousy, stolen check, and secret fallout. Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas were pulled into the narrative too. Their kindness twisted into suspicion. Outside a small diner, a billboard screen replayed the viral photo of Sandra's glance on a loop, as if a single second of human emotion could define an entire night. Inside that diner, Sandra sat in a booth with her hands wrapped around a mug of untouched coffee. Her phone vibrated constantly with calls from publicists and friends urging her to issue a statement. But she didn't want to feed the fire. She wanted truth, not noise. Her mind wandered to Mason, the young volunteer who had almost lost himself to desperation, and to the kids at the shelter who had greeted her with sleepy smiles, even in a leaking building. She knew the world outside was obsessed with scandal, but the world inside that shelter was fighting for survival. Keanu arrived quietly, sliding into the booth across from her. His jacket was damp from the early morning drizzle. "You holding up?" he asked softly. Sandra tried to smile but couldn't. "It's strange," she said. "The glance they're all talking about. It was over in a heartbeat, but now it feels like it's grown into something ugly and unrecognizable." Keanu nodded. "People like stories," he said. "Even the wrong ones." Then, with a small, warm grin, he added, "We'll tell the right one." Anna entered moments later, the bell above the door chiming gently. She slid in beside Sandra without hesitation. "I've been reading the comments," Anna admitted. "They're brutal. But some people are defending you. Strangers are saying jealousy is human, and that what matters is what you did after." Sandra's eyes softened. "What did we do after?" she asked, almost to herself. Anna answered, "We chose kindness, even when no one was watching." The intern, his hair still messy from the stormy night, joined them too. He brought a printed photo, a snapshot he had taken on his old camera. It showed Sandra, Keanu, Anna, and Mason standing together in the shelter, soaked from the rain but smiling faintly. "I thought you'd want this," the boy said. Sandra's lips curved into a small, grateful smile. But their quiet moment was broken by a message flashing on Keanu's phone. "Exclusive coming soon. Anonymous insider claims stars staged gala drama for publicity." Keanu's jaw tightened. "They're going to twist this even more," he said. Anna exhaled slowly. "Then we need to show them what really matters." They agreed to visit the shelter again, not for cameras, but to bring supplies, repair tools, and comfort. On their way there, Sandra stared out at the city streets, watching people hurry to work, watching a homeless man share half of his sandwich with a stray dog. She thought about how easily people miss the small acts of goodness that happen every day, drowned out by noise and spectacle. At the shelter, children ran to greet them, their laughter ringing through the worn halls like sunlight breaking through clouds. Mason was sweeping the floor, his shoulders straighter now, though guilt still shadowed his face. When he saw them, his eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. Sandra put a hand on his arm. "You don't need to thank us," she replied. "Just keep showing up for these kids. That's thanks enough." Keanu unpacked a box of groceries, crouching to listen as a little boy described his dream of becoming an astronaut. Anna knelt beside a girl drawing on a scrap of paper, offering gentle encouragement. The intern helped fix a broken chair leg, determined to make himself useful. There was no press, no applause, only quiet acts of care. But outside the shelter, a rival journalist watched from a car. She snapped photos through the window, determined to catch a moment she could twist into another headline. She didn't see the tenderness in their actions. She saw an opportunity. She called her editor. "I've got them," she said. "We'll run the story tonight." Meanwhile, the charity's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Rumors had shaken donor confidence, and some board members feared losing funding. One suggested cutting ties with the stars entirely. Another warned that doing so might make things worse. Tempers flared. In the middle of the heated debate, the elderly founder of the charity entered quietly. She was small and frail, but her presence silenced the room. She placed the returned check on the table. "These three saved this money," she said simply. "But more than that, they saved a young man's dignity." Her words softened the board's anger. Back at the shelter, Mason pulled Sandra aside. "I heard the board is angry," he said. "If they blame you, I'll confess publicly." Sandra shook her head. "We won't let you carry this alone," she said. "We're stronger together." Keanu overheard and added, "The world doesn't need another headline about shame. It needs proof that people can choose grace." As evening approached, they decided to organize a small, private event at the shelter to show donors the real work being done. Anna suggested inviting the children to share their dreams, their voices reminding everyone why the charity existed. The intern volunteered to film it quietly. No flashy edits, no music, just honesty. But before they could set the plan in motion, Keanu received another message. This one was worse. A leaked video, carefully edited, had been posted online, showing only selective clips. Sandra's jealous glance, Anna and Keanu laughing together, and a blurred shot of Mason holding the check. The caption read, "Proof of staged scandal. Hollywood's kindness was just a performance." Within minutes, the video went viral. Hashtags exploded again, this time even crueler. Sandra felt her stomach drop. Anna clenched her fists. The intern looked panicked. Mason whispered, "This could ruin everything." Keanu took a deep breath, his calm presence grounding them. "Then we don't hide," he said. "We don't run. We tell the truth, completely, openly." Anna looked at Sandra. "Are you ready for the world to see the real story?" Sandra hesitated, then nodded. "I'm ready," she said. "But let's do it in a way that keeps the focus on the shelter, not on us." Keanu smiled faintly. "That's what makes it real." As darkness fell, they stood together outside the shelter, the city lights flickering like distant stars. Their reputations were under attack, but their resolve was solid. They would risk their own comfort to protect a boy who had made a mistake for love, to protect the kids who needed a roof, to protect the idea that kindness should not be mocked. Somewhere across town, the rival journalist finalized her next piece, unaware that her actions would backfire in a way she could not imagine. And in the quiet streets near the shelter, a young boy peeked through a cracked window, watching the four figures under the streetlight. He didn't know about the gossip or the headlines. He only saw people choosing to stand together in the rain. The next morning arrived with a sharp chill in the air, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Los Angeles woke up to the edited video, playing on every news network and filling every timeline. Coffee shops buzzed with whispers. Office screens replayed the same blurred clips, and strangers debated the truth with confidence built on lies. On a large digital billboard downtown, the words "Hollywood's fake kindness" scrolled in bold letters, accompanied by a freeze frame of Sandra's glance and Mason's blurred face. Inside a quiet room at the shelter, Sandra Bullock stared at the floor. Her fingers traced invisible patterns on the edge of a wooden table. She had faced rumors before, but this one felt heavier. It threatened something bigger than her reputation. It threatened the children who needed the shelter, and it threatened Mason's chance at redemption. She could hear the laughter of children playing outside the window, and for a moment, that sound anchored her. Ana de Armas entered the room, her face pale but determined. She placed 2 mugs of tea on the table and sat down beside Sandra. "People are cruel when they're scared or bored," Anna said quietly. But we can choose what we do with it. Sandra glanced at her. I spent years trying to avoid headlines like this, she admitted. But maybe the only way through is to stop hiding. Keanu Reeves stepped into the room, his presence calm like a steady heartbeat. He held his phone in his hand, showing them a stream of hateful comments, then another page filled with strangers defending them. Ordinary people sharing stories of their own mistakes, their own second chances. It's not all bad, he said softly. There are still people out there who understand. The intern followed him, carrying a small box of tools for fixing the shelter's broken furniture. His voice was hesitant but strong. What if we show them something they can't twist? He suggested. They decided to host an open evening at the shelter, inviting donors, volunteers, and even journalists to see the truth for themselves. But instead of speeches, they would let the children's voices speak. The kids would share their dreams and what the shelter meant to them. Mason, still weighed down by guilt, shook his head. They won't listen to me, he said. Keanu placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. They will, he replied, because you're real. And real stories cut through noise. As word spread about the event, the rival journalist prepared her next move. She planned to attend, not to listen, but to catch something she could spin again. She was certain the stars would slip up under pressure. She told her editor, "This will be the headline of the month." When evening came, the shelter was lit with strings of warm lights borrowed from a local cafe. Children's drawings decorated the walls, and the faint smell of soup simmering in the kitchen filled the air. Small groups of people began arriving, some curious, some skeptical, some supportive. Reporters held their cameras at the ready. The atmosphere was tense but fragile, like the first step on thin ice. Anna knelt beside a little girl with wide brown eyes, encouraging her to share her story. The girl's voice trembled at first, but as she spoke about finding safety at the shelter after losing her parents, the room fell silent. A boy with a missing tooth stepped up next, holding a paper rocket he had built from scraps. "This place," he said shyly, "is where I started to believe I could still fly." Even the reporters lowered their cameras for a moment, their faces softening. Mason stepped forward, his hands shaking. The room waited. "I made a mistake," he said plainly. "I took something that wasn't mine because I was scared. But these people," he gestured to Sandra, Keanu, Anna, and the intern, "didn't destroy me for it. They helped me fix it. They showed me that kindness isn't about perfection. It's about forgiveness." A ripple of emotion swept through the room. Sandra then addressed the crowd, her voice steady but gentle. "The world can turn a single glance into a weapon," she said. "But the glance that matters is the one we give to someone who needs us, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable." Her words landed softly but powerfully. Anna added, "We all have shadows. What matters is what we do when the light hits them." Keanu stepped last, his voice quiet but firm. "Tonight isn't about us," he said. "It's about these kids. It's about second chances. And it's about reminding ourselves that kindness doesn't need an audience to be real." As the children clapped shyly, a subtle shift moved through the room. Even some of the reporters lowered their cameras entirely, ashamed of the headlines they had chased. The rival journalist stood at the back, her pen hovering over her notebook. For a moment, she felt the weight of her own choices pressing down on her chest. She lowered the pen, unsure for the first time. Then, unexpectedly, a wealthy donor who had pulled funding earlier stood up. Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I believed the headlines," she admitted. "But seeing all of you, I was wrong." She announced she would restore the funding and double her pledge. A wave of relief swept over the room, and a few people applauded quietly. Outside, however, another storm was brewing. A video snippet from the evening, taken out of context by an attendee, was already spreading. It showed Mason admitting his mistake, but cut off before his redemption. Some viewers twisted it, calling the entire event a staged performance. Online arguments erupted again. But this time, the tide was beginning to turn. More voices defended the truth than believed the lies. As the evening wound down, Sandra, Keanu, Anna, and Mason stood together under the string lights outside the shelter. The children peeked out the windows, waving. The intern snapped another quiet photo, not for headlines, but for memory. The four adults stood in silence for a moment, feeling the fragile beauty of the night. Then a small, unexpected sound broke through, the rival journalist's footsteps on the wet pavement. She approached them slowly, her eyes uncertain. I think I need to write a different story," she said quietly. "Not for my editor. For me." Keanu nodded once, no anger in his gaze. "Then write it," he said. As the journalist walked away, Sandra felt the weight on her shoulders lighten just a little. She glanced at Anna, and this time her eyes carried no jealousy, only gratitude. Anna smiled back, and Keanu's quiet laugh joined the night air. For the first time since the gala, they allowed themselves a small moment of peace. But peace, like morning fog, is delicate. Unknown to them, an even more shocking revelation was about to surface, one that would force them to make choices even harder than facing rumors. Across town, a confidential email sat unread in a newsroom inbox, holding information that could turn the narrative upside down once more. The city glittered under a blanket of night, but in a small newsroom across town, an email sat in a reporter's inbox with the subject line, "Truth about the Gala." When the journalist opened it, her eyes widened. Attached was a security camera still from another hallway in the gala venue. The missing check had been taken by a different volunteer entirely. Not Mason. Not anyone from the shelter. The volunteer had quietly returned it to the charity hours later, leaving a note begging not to be exposed because he feared losing his only job. The email included the full video footage proving that Keanu, Sandra, and Anna had been the ones who retrieved the envelope and protected Mason from being crushed by a false accusation. The journalist who had stirred the scandal stared at the screen. Guilt pooled in her stomach. She thought of the children's faces at the shelter and Mason's trembling voice when he confessed. She closed her eyes and realized her next article could either feed more chaos or heal some of the damage. At dawn, Sandra Bullock awoke to find her phone buzzing with dozens of messages. She scrolled through to see a new headline already spreading. Truth revealed. Hollywood star's defended volunteer returned missing check quietly. Screenshots of the security footage showed Keanu handing over the envelope, Sandra comforting Mason, and Anna speaking to the shelter kids. Hashtags flipped overnight, from a fake kindness to my real heroes and a kindness unmasked. People were apologizing publicly for judging too quickly. Keanu stepped outside the shelter, the sky still tinted pink from sunrise. Children played near the entrance, their laughter chasing away the night's lingering shadows. He watched Mason, now smiling shyly as he helped fix a broken bench, and felt a quiet satisfaction. Sandra joined him, holding 2 steaming cups of tea. "It's amazing," she said softly, "how fast people can tear you down, and how fast some of them can lift you up again." Keanu smiled faintly. "The world loves a twist," he replied. "But kindness is the twist they never expect." Anna approached, her hair catching the sunlight. "The journalist who started this mess called me this morning," she said. "She's writing a piece about the power of second chances. She wants to donate her fee to the shelter." Sandra raised an eyebrow. "That's a plot twist I can live with." They all laughed quietly, the tension between them finally melting away. Later that day, the shelter held a small gathering to celebrate. Children decorated the walls with fresh drawings, bright rockets, hearts, and smiling faces. Mason stood in front of the group, his voice steady for the first time in days. "I thought a mistake would end everything for me," he said. "But you all showed me that mistakes can be beginnings too. You saved me, and you saved this place." The room erupted in gentle applause. Sandra spoke next, her voice warm and full of emotion. "I gave a jealous glance," she admitted honestly. "The world turned it into a storm. But storms can clear the sky. I learned tonight that jealousy is small compared to kindness, and that respect is bigger than headlines." Anna took her hand gently, and Sandra squeezed back. Keanu addressed the crowd last, his words simple and unpolished. "None of us are perfect," he said. "We stumble, we get misunderstood, we lose faith sometimes. But we can choose to stand together, to forgive, to act with humility. That's what makes us stronger than any rumor." As the evening faded into golden light, the children sang a small song they had practiced, a song about holding on and building each other up. The sound was imperfect but beautiful, filling the shelter with something stronger than applause. The intern captured the moment on his camera, not for fame, but as a quiet memory of a night when kindness won, outside. Reporters waited, but their questions were softer now, their cameras lowered respectfully. One even handed over a box of donated books for the children. The rival journalist approached Sandra, her eyes shining with regret. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I wanted a story and forgot there were real people inside it." Sandra didn't hesitate. She hugged her. "Make the next story better," she said simply. In the weeks that followed, the shelter received enough donations to renovate the building, expand its programs, and secure its future. Mason became a staff member, using his experience to help other kids and volunteers facing hard choices. The intern's quiet footage was shared online, not as a viral spectacle, but as a simple video titled, "The Night Kindness Spoke Louder Than Gossip." It reached millions who were tired of noise and ready to believe in goodness again. Months later, Sandra, Keanu, and Anna attended a small community event at the shelter. No red carpets, no flashing lights, just kids laughing, paint on their hands, and Mason teaching a boy how to fix a broken toy. Sandra looked at Keanu and Anna, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. "Funny," she said softly, "how one glance started all this." Keanu chuckled. "Sometimes the smallest things have the biggest echoes," Anna added. "And sometimes the storm you fear most is the one that waters the seeds you planted." As twilight wrapped the city in a soft glow, the three friends stood together watching the children chase fireflies in the yard. The world outside still had its noise, its gossip, its quick judgments. But here, in this small corner, respect and resilience had built something unshakable.